I never thought I would see such raw hatred in my son Jack's eyes as he screamed at me for my pension money. Each month, the day my deposit arrived, he would show up with a different desperate story. After 45 years of hard work, my retirement should have been peaceful. Instead, I lived with mounting anxiety as each pension day approached. When did my sweet little boy become this angry stranger? The answer would break my heart before it saved us both. I always imagined retirement would be my time for peaceful reflection and small pleasures. After losing my husband Thomas to a heart attack when Jack was only 8 years old, I spent decades working as an elementary school teacher in our small Vermont town. I saved every penny I could for retirement while raising Jack alone. When I finally retired at 65, I settled into a modest but comfortable life in the small 2-bedroom house Thomas and I had purchased when we first married. My retirement income wasn't extravagant, but it covered my needs. My monthly pension check, combined with Social Security, gave me just enough to pay my bills, keep my garden thriving, and occasionally treat myself to dinner with friends. I even managed to put a little aside each month for emergencies and small gifts for my grandchildren. Jack was 35 when I retired, married to Sarah with 2 beautiful children, Lily and Ryan. He worked as a sales manager at a local furniture store, and Sarah was a part-time dental hygienist. They seemed comfortable financially, living in a nice ranch-style home about 15 minutes from mine. I was so proud of the family Jack had built and the man he had become. The first time Jack asked me for money was about 6 months into my retirement. He called on a Tuesday evening, his voice tight with worry. "Mom, I hate to ask this, but we've got a situation," he said. "The water heater burst, and we need to replace it right away. Insurance will cover it, but they won't send the check for 2 weeks. Could you possibly loan us $800 until then? I promise I'll pay you back as soon as the insurance money comes through." Of course I said yes. What mother wouldn't? I wrote the check immediately when he came over, and I felt good being able to help my son in a time of need. The way his face relaxed with relief made me feel needed and important. He hugged me tightly before leaving, promising to repay me soon. 3 weeks later, Jack called again. The insurance check had been delayed, he explained, but he'd definitely pay me back the following month. I told him not to worry about it. What was money for, if not to help family? The requests continued, coming more frequently and always with compelling reasons. Ryan needed special shoes for his flat feet. The car needed emergency repairs. Sarah had unexpected dental work not covered by insurance. Each time, Jack promised repayment that never materialized, but I didn't press the issue. I was happy to help, and saying yes to Jack made me feel connected to him and his family. Soon, these financial requests became almost monthly occurrences, usually happening right around the time my pension was deposited. I noticed the pattern, but dismissed it as coincidence. Jack was a responsible adult with his own family. If he needed help, there must be legitimate reasons. One evening in early summer, I hosted a small barbecue in my backyard. Jack and his family attended, along with some neighbors and my best friend Dorothy. While Jack grilled hamburgers, I went inside to fetch more lemonade. As I approached the back door to return outside, I overheard Jack talking to his friend Travis, who had come with him. "Mom's always good for extra cash," Jack was saying with a laugh. "Just have to tell her some sob story, and she hands it right over. Easiest money I ever made." "Doesn't she ask for it back?" Travis asked. "She did at first, but now she's forgotten about it. Honestly, what's she going to spend it on anyway? She's just sitting on that pension. Might as well put it to good use." The glasses nearly slipped from my hands as his words registered. I stood frozen, ice clinking in the lemonade, as my son continued. "She's pretty gullible. Last month I told her Ryan needed special therapy sessions. Bought myself that new golf club set I've been wanting." The casual cruelty in his voice pierced my heart like a physical pain. I quietly set the glasses down on the counter and took several deep breaths. Then I wiped my eyes, picked up the drinks, and walked outside as if I'd heard nothing. I couldn't cause a scene, not with everyone there, not with my grandchildren watching. For the rest of the evening, I moved through the gathering like a ghost, smiling and serving food while my mind replayed Jack's words over and over. I wanted desperately to believe I had misunderstood, that he had been joking with his friend. But the memory of his laughter, so dismissive and cold, left no room for misinterpretation. That night, after everyone had gone home, I sat alone in my living room until dawn, wrestling with what I had learned. By morning, I had convinced myself that I was overreacting. Jack was probably just showing off for his friend. He wouldn't really think of me that way, not after all we'd been through together. I decided to give him the benefit of the doubt, but a seed of doubt had been planted, one that would grow despite my best efforts to uproot it. Over the next several months, I became more observant of Jack's behavior. His requests for money continued with clockwork precision, always within days of my pension deposit. The amounts grew larger, and the stories more elaborate. "Mom, the company is doing layoffs, and I need to have cash reserves just in case. Mom, Ryan fell at soccer practice and needs an MRI that insurance won't fully cover. Mom, we have a plumbing emergency. The whole downstairs is flooded." Each time I would hesitate a little longer before saying yes, but I still couldn't bring myself to refuse him outright. The memory of his conversation with Travis lingered, but so did decades of maternal instinct to provide for my child. I started feeling the financial strain, though. My small emergency fund dwindled to nothing, and I began cutting back on my own expenses. I canceled my weekly lunch with Dorothy, stopped buying books for my reading group, and put off needed repairs to my aging roof. Dorothy noticed the changes in my lifestyle and confronted me one afternoon when she stopped by unexpectedly. We sat at my kitchen table over cups of tea, and she didn't mince words. "Isabella, you're wearing the same sweater you've been mending for 3 years. Your refrigerator is practically empty, and you've canceled our lunches 6 times in a row. What's going on?" I tried to deflect, but Dorothy had been my friend for over 30 years. She knew me too well. Eventually, I confessed everything about Jack's requests and the conversation I'd overheard. Dorothy's face darkened as I spoke. "Isabella, honey, that's financial elder abuse. Jack is taking advantage of you." "Don't be ridiculous," I protested, though her words struck a nerve. "He's my son. He's just going through a rough patch." "A rough patch doesn't last 18 months, she countered, "and it certainly doesn't involve lying to his mother. Have you seen any evidence of these emergencies? The water heater, the flooding, the medical bills?" I hadn't, I realized. Jack always asked me not to mention the loans to Sarah, claiming he didn't want to worry her. I'd respected his wishes, without questioning why his wife wouldn't know about their own financial emergencies. "I think you need to see what's really happening here," Dorothy said gently. "Next time he asks, demand receipts or offer to pay the bill directly instead of giving him cash." I nodded, though the thought of confronting Jack made my stomach twist with anxiety. My opportunity came just 3 days later. Jack called with yet another crisis story about his car needing immediate repairs. When he came over that evening, I had my checkbook ready, but also a new approach. "Which repair shop is doing the work?" I asked casually. I could call them directly and pay over the phone with my credit card. That would be simpler. Jack's expression flickered momentarily before settling into a reassuring smile. "That's not necessary, Mom. They don't take credit cards over the phone. Cash or check only. What's the name of the shop? I'd like to keep track of these expenses for my records. Jack named a local garage, then quickly added, "But the check should be to me. I already paid them with my credit card, and I'm just waiting for reimbursement." I wrote the check, still unable to deny him outright, but his inconsistent story strengthened my suspicions. After he left, I called the garage he'd mentioned. They confirmed they hadn't seen Jack or his car in over a year. The following week, I volunteered to watch my grandchildren while Sarah attended a dental conference in Boston. When I arrived at their house, Sarah thanked me profusely for helping out. "Jack's working late all week," she explained, gathering her things for the trip. "The store's having some big promotion." I nodded, not mentioning that Jack had told me he'd taken the week off to handle some personal matters. The discrepancies in his stories were becoming impossible to ignore. While the children napped that afternoon, I tidied up the living room and accidentally knocked over a stack of mail on the side table. As I gathered the scattered envelopes, I noticed several credit card statements addressed to Jack. I knew I shouldn't look, that these were private, but my hand seemed to move of its own accord, opening the most recent statement. What I found left me breathless. On the same day Jack had claimed to need money for Ryan's medical bills, there was a charge for $800 at a high-end electronics store. The day of the supposed plumbing emergency showed a purchase at a designer clothing outlet. There were restaurant charges, sports equipment purchases, even hotel stays I knew nothing about. I replaced the statement with trembling hands, my mind racing. There was no longer any room for doubt or self-deception. Jack had been systematically lying to me to get money for luxury purchases and entertainment. When Jack returned home early that evening, I was sitting at the kitchen table waiting for him. The children were playing in the backyard, out of earshot. "We need to talk about the money, Jack," I said quietly. His expression immediately became guarded. "What about it? I know there was no plumbing emergency last month, or medical bills for Ryan, or car repairs." My voice remained steady, despite the pain in my chest. Jack's face went through a rapid series of emotions, landing finally on contrition. He sat down across from me and reached for my hands. "Mom, I'm so sorry," he said, his eyes filling with tears. "I've been under so much pressure lately. Work has been awful, and Sarah and I have been fighting about money. I just wanted to give my family some nice things, take some of the stress off. I know it was wrong to lie to you." His apparent remorse tugged at my heart. This was my son, my only child. Despite everything, I wanted to believe him. "I promise I'll pay back every penny," he continued, squeezing my hands. "And I won't ask for any more loans. I'm going to make things right." I wanted to believe him so badly that I ignored the small voice in my head pointing out that I'd heard similar promises before. "All right," I said finally. "But no more loans, Jack. My retirement savings isn't an unlimited resource." He agreed readily, thanking me repeatedly for understanding. When Sarah returned from her conference, neither of us mentioned our conversation. I went home feeling cautiously optimistic that we had turned a corner. My hope lasted exactly 28 days, until my next pension deposit date. Like clockwork, Jack appeared at my door that evening, his expression grave. "Mom, I hate to ask after our talk, but this is different. Sarah doesn't know yet, but I'm in real trouble." Jack's promises evaporated faster than morning dew on a hot summer day. Not only did the requests continue, but they transformed from requests into expectations. He no longer called ahead to ask if I could help with a financial emergency. Instead, he simply showed up at my house on pension day, sometimes with an elaborate story, sometimes with barely any explanation at all. Property taxes due, he would say, or car insurance, holding out his hand as if I were a bank teller rather than his mother. The amounts he demanded grew larger, and his demeanor changed dramatically if I hesitated. The sweet, apologetic son would vanish, replaced by a cold, sometimes angry stranger. Once, when I asked if we could wait until the next day because I was feeling unwell, his face twisted with impatience. "Mom, I don't have time for this. I need the money today. Can't you just write the check so I can get going?" I wrote the check, my hand shaking from more than just my arthritis. That night I cried myself to sleep, mourning the loss of the relationship I thought we had. My finances began to deteriorate seriously. I started using my credit card for groceries and basic necessities, something I'd never done before. I canceled my supplemental health insurance because I couldn't afford the premiums, leaving me vulnerable to medical costs Medicare wouldn't cover. The roof repair I'd been postponing became urgent after a heavy rainstorm left water stains on my bedroom ceiling. I began hiding small amounts of cash around the house, tucking $20 bills inside books and in the pockets of winter clothes, creating a secret emergency fund Jack couldn't access. I felt like a squirrel hiding nuts for winter, except the harsh season I was preparing for was one of my son's making. Jack's tactics evolved as well. He began bringing his children along when asking for money, using their presence as emotional leverage. How could I say no with Lily and Ryan sitting in my living room, their innocent eyes watching our exchange? Sometimes he would mention casually how they loved spending time at Grandma's house, the implication clear that my access to my grandchildren hinged on my continued financial support. When manipulation didn't work, Jack wasn't above using guilt or anger. He reminded me repeatedly of the sacrifices he'd made for me, though I couldn't recall any specific instances. He brought up times in his childhood when he'd gone without things his friends had, implying I had somehow failed him as a mother by not providing a more affluent upbringing. "I just want to give my kids what I never had," he would say. "Don't you want better for your grandchildren than you gave me?" Each barb found its mark. Despite knowing I had done my absolute best as a single mother, working extra jobs to provide for Jack's needs, doubts crept in. Had I somehow damaged him by not being able to provide more materially? Was his behavior now a reflection of my own parenting failures? The emotional toll began affecting my physical health. I developed high blood pressure, something I'd never struggled with before. I lost weight as my appetite diminished. Sleep became elusive, with financial worries chasing themselves around my mind late into the night. Throughout this difficult period, I kept most of my struggles hidden from others. Pride prevented me from admitting to friends how badly things had deteriorated between Jack and me. I made excuses when I couldn't attend social functions due to lack of funds. I deflected questions about Jack with vague comments about him being busy with work and family. The isolation only made everything harder to bear. In early spring, about 2 years after Jack's financial demands had begun, my daughter Emily came to visit from Seattle, where she worked as a software engineer. Emily was actually my niece, my sister's daughter, but I had raised her alongside Jack after my sister died. Though not my biological child, Emily and I had always been close, and she called me Mom. She tried to visit at least once a year, though her demanding job made regular trips difficult. Emily noticed the changes in my home and appearance immediately. The unrepaired roof, the worn furniture I would have replaced years ago, my thinner frame and tired eyes. "What's going on, Mom?" she asked on her second day, sitting beside me on the porch swing. "This isn't like you. The house needs work. Your refrigerator is practically empty, and you look exhausted." I considered deflecting her concerns as I had with others, but something about Emily's direct, caring approach broke through my defenses. Once I started talking, Everything poured out, the story of Jack's escalating demands and manipulations over the past 2 years. Emily's expression grew increasingly troubled as I spoke. When I finished, she took my hands in hers, her grip tight. "Mom, this is serious. Do you know what Jack has been telling people?" My heart sank. "What do you mean?" Emily hesitated, then continued gently. "He called me about 6 months ago, saying he was concerned about you. He told me you were becoming confused about money, that you were making irrational financial decisions and might need someone to take over managing your finances soon." The blood drained from my face as I processed her words. "That's not true," I whispered. "I know that," Emily assured me. "That's why I made time for this visit, to see for myself. He's told similar things to Aunt Margaret and Uncle Bill. He's been laying groundwork, Mom. If enough people believe you're becoming mentally incompetent, he could potentially petition for control of your finances." The realization hit me like a physical blow. Jack wasn't just exploiting me financially. He was systematically undermining my reputation and autonomy, potentially setting the stage for complete control of my assets. "What do I do?" I asked, my voice small. Emily's expression hardened with resolve. "First, we document everything. Every penny he's taken, every lie he's told. Then, we get you some proper help, someone who specializes in elder financial abuse." "Abuse," I repeated the word, testing its weight. I had never applied that term to what was happening with Jack, but hearing it from Emily, I couldn't deny its accuracy. "Yes, Mom, abuse," Emily confirmed firmly. "What he's doing is not just wrong, it's potentially criminal. And it needs to stop." For the first time in 2 years, I felt a flicker of hope that there might be a way out of the terrible situation I'd found myself in. But that hope was tempered by the painful knowledge that the threat to my financial security and independence came from the person I'd once trusted most in the world, my own son. The week after Emily returned to Seattle, I reluctantly attended a support group for victims of elder abuse at the local senior center. Emily had found the group online and practically made me promise to go. I sat in my car for 20 minutes before finding the courage to walk in, still uncomfortable with the label of victim and the admission that my own son was my abuser. The group met in a cheerful room with large windows overlooking a community garden. 8 other seniors sat in a circle of comfortable chairs, nodding in greeting as I entered. The facilitator, a compassionate social worker named Brenda, welcomed me warmly and explained the group's purpose: to provide support, resources, and strategies for seniors experiencing various forms of abuse. As the others began sharing their stories, I was struck by the similarities to my situation. Children, or grandchildren, manipulating elderly parents for money. Caregivers exerting control through isolation or intimidation, trusted family members stealing identities or forging signatures. These weren't strangers with unrelatable experiences. They were people just like me, who never imagined they would find themselves in such painful circumstances. When my turn came, I surprised myself by speaking openly about Jack. Words I hadn't even acknowledged to myself tumbled out, describing his manipulation, the financial strain, and the emotional toll of his betrayal. "But he's going through a difficult time," I added quickly, the familiar excuse rising to my lips. "He's not a bad person. He's just struggling." An older gentleman named Frank shook his head gently. "That's what I said about my daughter for 3 years while she emptied my savings account. Trust me, they always have a reason, a justification. It doesn't make what they're doing okay." A woman named Grace nodded in agreement. "My son was just going through a rough patch for 5 years. That rough patch cost me my home." Their words stayed with me long after the meeting ended. I began to see Jack's behavior through their eyes, recognizing the patterns they had described. The escalation, the increasing sense of entitlement, the manipulation tactics when resistance was encountered. Armed with this new perspective, I attempted to establish some basic boundaries the next time Jack appeared for money. It was pension day, and as expected, he showed up at my door in the early evening. "I need to talk to you about the roof," I said before he could launch into whatever story he had prepared. "It's leaking badly, and I need to use my pension this month for repairs." Jack's friendly expression vanished immediately. "You can get the roof fixed next month." "I have bills due now, Mom." "My bills are due too," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "And if I don't fix the roof soon, there could be structural damage to the house." "So, get a home equity loan," he snapped. "The house is paid off. You've got plenty of equity." "I don't want to take on debt at my age," I explained. "And my credit score has dropped because of the credit card bills I've been accumulating." Jack's face darkened with anger. "Bills for what? You barely go anywhere or do anything. What could you possibly be spending money on?" "Food, utilities, health care," I replied, my own anger beginning to rise. "Basic necessities that I can barely afford now because I've been giving so much to you." "Giving to me?" Jack laughed bitterly. "It's your duty as a parent to help your children. I wouldn't have to ask if you had managed your money better. You should have saved more for retirement." His words stung, especially because I had always been careful with money, sacrificing my own wants for decades to provide for him and save for retirement. Before I could respond, Jack spotted my checkbook on the side table. He strode over and grabbed it, flipping it open. "Just write the check, Mom. $800. I don't have time for this conversation." When I hesitated, he threw the checkbook at me. It hit my chest and fell to the floor. Pages splayed open. "You know what? Forget it," he snarled. "Keep your precious money, but don't expect to see the kids anytime soon. They've been asking about spending the weekend with Grandma, but I guess I'll have to tell them you're too busy with your roof." The naked threat to withhold my grandchildren left me speechless. Jack stormed out, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the windows. I sat frozen in my chair, the fallen checkbook at my feet, trembling with shock and grief. The following Sunday, Jack brought his family to a neighborhood barbecue at the park, adjacent to my home. I hadn't seen or spoken to him since our confrontation, and his appearance surprised me. He greeted me, as if nothing had happened, even bringing a fruit salad he claimed Sarah had made, though I recognized the container from the local grocery store. Throughout the afternoon, Jack was charming and attentive, helping the host with the grill and entertaining children with stories. Anyone observing would have thought we had a perfect mother-son relationship. I began to hope that perhaps our argument had been a turning point, that Jack had reflected on his behavior and decided to change. That hope died when Jack cornered me by the dessert table, ostensibly helping me serve pie to guests. "Have you reconsidered the loan?" he asked quietly, maintaining his smile for onlookers. "Jack, I told you I need to fix the roof," I replied, equally quiet, equally smiling. His expression didn't change, but his voice took on a dangerous edge. $800, Mom. It's not much to ask. It is when I don't have it to spare." Jack's eyes narrowed slightly. "You know, I've been talking with Dr. Harrison about you. Dr. Harrison was our family physician who had treated both Jack and me for years. He says memory issues and poor financial judgment can be early signs of dementia." My hand holding the pie server froze mid-air. "What are you talking about?" Jack raised his voice slightly, ensuring nearby neighbors could hear. "It's nothing to be ashamed of, Mom. Lots of people your age start having these problems. But it might be time to consider assisted living, where they can help manage your finances properly." Several neighbors glanced our way, their expressions shifting to concern. Jack put his arm around my shoulders in what would appear to outsiders as a comforting gesture. "We can discuss it more later," he said loudly. "Don't worry about anything." As he walked away to rejoin the other guests, I stood motionless, the piece of pie on my server slowly tilting toward the ground. My neighbor Martha approached cautiously. "Is everything all right, Isabella? Jack seems concerned about you." The humiliation of being discussed as if I were already incapacitated, coupled with the realization that Jack was publicly setting the stage for taking control of my finances, left me feeling physically ill. I mumbled something about not feeling well and quickly returned to my house, locking the door behind me. That night, as I sat alone in my darkened living room, I faced a painful truth. This situation would not improve on its own. Jack would not stop his financial exploitation unless forced to do so. And if I continued to resist without taking definitive action, he might escalate to attempting legal control of my assets. With trembling hands, I picked up the business card Emily had left me before returning to Seattle. It belonged to a lawyer specializing in elder law and financial abuse cases. I had resisted calling, still hoping to resolve things with Jack privately, still protecting him even as he harmed me. No more. I dialed the number, and when the answering service picked up, I left a message requesting the earliest possible appointment. As I hung up, I felt a strange mixture of dread and relief. Dread at the confrontation to come, relief at finally taking steps to protect myself. The path ahead would be painful, but for the first time in years, I was choosing myself over Jack's demands. It was time to reclaim my life and my dignity, no matter how difficult the process might be. The offices of Montgomery Elder Law were located in a converted Victorian house downtown, its interior warm and welcoming, despite the serious nature of the business conducted there. Patricia Montgomery met me in a comfortable conference room with soft lighting and artwork depicting peaceful landscapes. In her early 50s, with prematurely silver hair and kind eyes behind stylish glasses, she exuded both compassion and competence. "Mrs. Wilson," she greeted me, offering her hand. "Thank you for coming in today. Emily mentioned some of your concerns when she called, but I'd like to hear the situation in your own words." For the next hour, I shared the painful evolution of Jack's behavior over the past 2 years. Patricia took detailed notes, occasionally asking clarifying questions about dates, amounts, and specific incidents. She never expressed shock or judgment, which made it easier to speak openly about things I had kept hidden out of shame and embarrassment. When I finished, Patricia set aside her notepad and looked at me directly. "Mrs. Wilson, what you've described is a textbook case of elder financial exploitation. It's not just morally wrong, it's legally actionable. I don't want to press charges against my own son," I said quickly. Patricia nodded understandingly. "Many don't, and that's perfectly valid. But you should know your rights and options. Financial elder abuse can be addressed through civil proceedings, criminal charges, or often just the threat of legal consequences is enough to stop the behavior." She explained that in our state, financial exploitation of an elder was taken very seriously by the courts. Even without pursuing criminal charges, I could obtain protective orders preventing Jack from accessing my finances or even approaching my home if necessary. "The first step is documentation," Patricia advised. "We need to establish a clear pattern of exploitation. Do you have bank statements showing the withdrawals? Any written communications about the money? Witnesses to his behavior?" I had brought my bank statements, which clearly showed the regular withdrawals coinciding with pension deposits. Dorothy was willing to provide a statement about the changes she'd observed in my financial situation and Jack's behavior toward me. Emily could testify about Jack's attempts to undermine my mental competency with extended family. "This is a good start," Patricia said after reviewing what I had brought. "Now we need to secure your assets immediately to prevent further exploitation." Over the next week, with Patricia's guidance, I took several concrete steps to protect myself financially. I opened new accounts at a different bank, transferring my remaining funds there and arranging for my pension and Social Security to be deposited into these new accounts. I froze my credit with all 3 major credit bureaus to prevent any new accounts from being opened in my name. I changed all my passwords for online banking and bill payments. I installed a small security camera system that Dorothy's son helped set up, covering my front and back doors. I organized all my important documents, including my will, power of attorney, and healthcare directives, ensuring Jack was removed from all positions of financial responsibility. I began keeping a detailed journal of all interactions with Jack, recording dates, times, what was said, and any witnesses present. These practical steps gave me a sense of control I hadn't felt in years. For the first time, I was taking action rather than just reacting to Jack's demands. Patricia and I developed a plan for the inevitable confrontation that would come with pension day. She would be present at my home when Jack arrived, prepared to explain the legal consequences if his financial harassment continued. "Be prepared for him to react badly," Patricia warned. "When financial abusers are confronted, they often become angry, defensive, or try to manipulate the situation by playing the victim." I nodded, steeling myself for what was to come. "I understand, but I can't continue living like this." As we finalized our strategy, I received an unexpected call from my bank's fraud department. They had detected suspicious activity on my account, specifically an attempt to access my online banking from an unrecognized device using my login credentials. "Did you recently try to access your account from a new phone or computer?" the fraud specialist asked. "No," I replied, a chill running through me. "I only use my home computer for banking." The specialist explained that someone had attempted to log in, but was blocked by the additional security measures the bank had in place. They couldn't identify who had made the attempt, but the IP address traced back to a location in my town. When I relayed this information to Patricia, her expression grew serious. "This changes things. Someone, likely Jack, has attempted unauthorized access to your financial accounts. That's not just exploitation. It's potential identity theft." "How would he get my login information?" I wondered aloud, though even as I asked, I remembered the stack of mail Jack had helped me organize during a visit a month earlier. Had he been looking for bank statements? Noting down my account numbers? Patricia recommended filing a police report about the attempted account access. Though reluctant, I agreed it was necessary to create an official record of the incident. The responding officer was sympathetic and professional, carefully documenting the bank's report and my suspicions about who might be responsible. As pension day approached, my anxiety increased exponentially. Jack would expect his usual payment, but this time he would find the situation dramatically changed. Despite my resolve, part of me still dreaded confronting my son. Still loved him, despite everything he had done. My health suffered in the days leading up to the confrontation. My blood pressure spiked, prompting my doctor to adjust my medication. I developed stress-induced insomnia, often lying awake until dawn, rehearsing what I would say to Jack. My appetite vanished completely, and I lost 5 pounds in a single week. The evening before pension day, I sat in my garden as the sun set, drawing strength from the peace of growing things. The tomato plants I had started from seed were flourishing, their fruit beginning to ripen. The roses Thomas had planted decades ago continued to bloom year after year. My life, like this garden, could renew itself with proper care and boundaries. Dorothy called to check on me, offering to be present during the confrontation as additional support. I thanked her, but declined. Having too many people might make Jack feel ambushed and escalate the situation further. This needed to be as controlled and calm as possible. "Call me immediately after," she insisted. "I'll be waiting to hear how it went." As I prepared for bed that night, I took out old photo albums, looking at pictures of Jack growing up. His first day of school, grinning with his front teeth missing. Playing Little League baseball, proudly holding up a trophy. His high school graduation, with me standing beside him, my arm around his shoulders, both of us beaming with pride and hope for the future. Where had that boy gone? Was he still somewhere inside the man who had caused me so much pain? Could our relationship ever heal after what was to come? With these questions still circling in my mind, I finally drifted into an uneasy sleep, dreaming of happier times that seemed to belong to another lifetime entirely. Pension day dawned bright and clear, the kind of perfect early summer morning that normally would have lifted my spirits. Today, however, the sunshine felt like a harsh spotlight on the family drama about to unfold in my living room. Patricia arrived at 9:30, carrying a sleek leather briefcase and dressed in a professional navy suit that somehow managed to look both authoritative and approachable. She reviewed our strategy once more as we waited, ensuring I felt prepared for any reaction Jack might have. "Remember, stay calm no matter what he says or does," she advised. "Don't let him derail the conversation with accusations or guilt trips. We're here to state facts and boundaries, not to argue." I nodded, my mouth too dry for words. My hands shook slightly as I arranged and rearranged the cushions on the couch, a nervous habit from my teaching days before parent conferences I anticipated would be difficult. Jack typically arrived between 10 and 11 on pension days. As the clock ticked past 10:15, I began to wonder if somehow he knew about my preparations and had decided not to come. Perhaps the confrontation would be delayed, giving me more time to gather my courage. At 10:40, the familiar sound of Jack's SUV pulling into my driveway shattered that hope. Through the window, I watched him exit his vehicle, his movements confident and entitled as always. He didn't even glance at the security camera now installed above my front door as he bounded up the steps and knocked with the casual authority of someone who considers the space already partially theirs. I took a deep breath, nodded to Patricia, who had positioned herself slightly out of view from the entryway, and opened the door. Jack's smile faltered momentarily when he saw me, perhaps detecting something different in my demeanor. But he recovered quickly, leaning in to give me a perfunctory kiss on the cheek. "Morning, Mom," he said breezily, already moving past me into the living room. "Beautiful day, isn't it? I can't stay long. I've got a meeting at 1, so if you could just—" His voice trailed off as he noticed Patricia rising from her seat, extending her hand professionally. "Good morning, Mr. Wilson. I'm Patricia Montgomery, your mother's attorney." Jack froze, his expression cycling rapidly through confusion, surprise, and wariness before settling into a forced casual smile. "Attorney? What's going on, Mom? Is this about your will or something?" "Please sit down, Jack," I said, gesturing to the armchair across from the couch where Patricia and I would sit. "We need to talk about the financial situation between us." His smile vanished completely, replaced by a defensive scowl. "What financial situation? You helping out your son occasionally? Since when is that something that requires a lawyer?" "Please, Mr. Wilson," Patricia interjected smoothly. "This will be much easier if we can discuss this calmly. Your mother has asked me to represent her interests regarding the systematic financial exploitation that has occurred over the past 2 years." "Exploitation?" Jack nearly spat the word, looking at me with betrayal in his eyes. Is that what you're calling it now? Your own son asking for help in tough times? I sat down, motioning again for Jack to do the same. After a moment's hesitation, he perched on the edge of the armchair, his body language radiating tension. "Jack," I began, my voice steadier than I expected, "in the past 2 years, you've taken over $30,000 from me through deception. You've created false emergencies, lied about expenses, and used emotional manipulation to access my pension and savings." "That's ridiculous," he scoffed, though I noted he didn't specifically deny any of my claims. "I've borrowed money, sure, but I've always planned to pay it back." Patricia opened her briefcase and removed a folder. "We have documented evidence of regular withdrawals coinciding with Mrs. Wilson's pension deposits, witness statements regarding your behavior, and even a police report regarding an unauthorized attempt to access her bank accounts online." Jack's face paled slightly at the mention of the police report, confirming my suspicion that he had indeed been the one trying to access my accounts. "This is how you treat family?" he demanded, ignoring Patricia and focusing his anger on me. "Calling lawyers and police on your own son? What kind of mother does that?" I had anticipated this attack, the attempt to shift blame and induce guilt, but it still hurt. I took a deep breath before responding. "A mother who needs to protect herself," I said quietly. "A mother who can no longer afford basic necessities because her son has taken so much. A mother whose roof is leaking because she can't afford repairs after giving her pension to her son month after month." Jack stood abruptly, pacing the small living room like a caged animal. "So what is this? A shakedown? You're trying to get money from me now? Good luck with that, I'm broke." "This isn't about getting money back," Patricia explained calmly, "though restitution could be part of a legal settlement if Mrs. Wilson chose to pursue that option. This meeting is to inform you that the financial exploitation stops today." She handed Jack a document. "This is a formal cease and desist letter. It details the evidence we have gathered and the potential legal consequences should the exploitation continue, including possible criminal charges for elder financial abuse and attempted identity theft." Jack stared at the document without taking it, his face flushing with anger. "This is insane. I'm not some criminal. I'm your son." "Yes, you are my son," I acknowledged, fighting to keep my voice from breaking, which makes this all the more painful. "But being my son doesn't give you the right to take advantage of me financially or to try to undermine my independence." "Is this about what I said at the barbecue?" Jack demanded. "I was concerned about you, that's all. You've been acting strange, forgetting things. We're also aware of your attempts to suggest Mrs. Wilson is cognitively impaired," Patricia interjected. "Mrs. Wilson has undergone a complete cognitive assessment with her physician, who has documented that she is fully competent to manage her own affairs. Any further attempts to undermine her mental competency could be construed as part of a pattern of elder abuse." Jack's face contorted with rage. He slammed his fist against the wall, causing me to flinch. "This is your doing," he snarled at Patricia. "You've twisted everything, turned her against me for your legal fees." Patricia remained unruffled. "Mr. Wilson, your reaction right now is only reinforcing the concerns about your behavior. I suggest you take the letter, read it carefully, and consult with your own attorney if you wish. But understand that your mother's finances are now protected. The pattern of exploitation we've documented stops today." Jack turned to me, his expression shifting suddenly from rage to pleading. "Mom, please. You don't understand. I'm in trouble, real trouble this time." The abrupt change in tactics was so familiar, it almost made me smile sadly. This was Jack's pattern: anger followed by desperate appeals when intimidation failed. "What kind of trouble, Jack?" I asked, more curious than concerned. He sank back into the chair, running his hands through his hair in apparent distress. I owe people money. Dangerous people. I've been gambling online and it got out of control. These guys, they don't mess around when you can't pay. That's why I needed the money. Not for luxury stuff like you think. The confession stunned me. Gambling addiction had never occurred to me as an explanation for Jack's behavior. I looked to Patricia, uncertain how to respond to this new information. "How much do you owe?" Patricia asked pragmatically. Jack hesitated, then muttered, "About 40,000, I gasped. The amount was staggering, far more than I could have helped with, even if I'd wanted to. "And these dangerous people," Patricia continued, "have they threatened you physically?" "Not directly," Jack admitted, "but they've made it clear there will be consequences if I don't pay soon." Patricia's expression remained neutral, professional. "Mr. Wilson, if you're being threatened, that's a police matter. As for the gambling debts, there are resources available for gambling addiction and debt management. But Mrs. Wilson's pension is not an appropriate source of funds for either situation." Jack looked at me desperately. "Mom, please. Just this one last time. I swear I'll get help for the gambling, but I need to pay these guys something to buy time." For a moment, the old instinct to help my child, despite everything, welled up in me. But I thought of all the promises Jack had already broken, all the last times that never were, and I steeled myself against the impulse. "No, Jack," I said firmly. "I can't give you any more money, but I can help you get treatment for gambling addiction. There are good programs, and I'll support you through recovery in every non-financial way possible." Jack's face darkened again as he realized his confession hadn't achieved the desired result. He stood, crumpling Patricia's letter and throwing it to the floor. "Keep your help," he spat, "and don't expect to see me or your grandchildren again. You've made your choice." The threat to cut me off from Lily and Ryan sent a shaft of pain through my heart, but I held firm. "That's your decision, Jack, but using your children as pawns won't change mine." He stormed toward the door, pausing only to deliver a final barb. "You know what? Dad would be ashamed of you for doing this to your own son." The invocation of Thomas, who had been dead for nearly 30 years, was a low blow designed to cause maximum pain. I took a deep breath, refusing to let Jack see how deeply his words cut. "Your father valued honesty and responsibility above all," I replied steadily. "I think he would be disappointed in what's happened here, but not in my decision to protect myself." Jack had no response to that. He slammed the door as he left, the sound reverberating through the quiet house. Through the window, I watched him peel out of my driveway, gravel spraying from beneath his tires. When he was gone, my composure finally crumbled. I sat heavily on the couch, tears flowing freely. Patricia moved beside me, placing a comforting hand on my shoulder. "You did extremely well," she assured me. "That couldn't have been easy." "It wasn't," I acknowledged, wiping my eyes. "And I'm worried about him. If what he said about gambling debts is true, we can look into resources for him," Patricia said. "But you were right not to give him money. That would only enable his addiction. Do you think he'll really keep the grandchildren from me?" I asked, voicing my deepest fear. Patricia sighed. "He might try, at least initially. But alienating children from grandparents typically backfires in the long run. And if he persists, there are legal avenues for grandparents' visitation rights that we could explore." After Patricia left, I called Dorothy as promised, giving her a full account of the confrontation. She came over immediately, bringing comfort food and staying late into the evening, her steady presence helping to anchor me amid the emotional turbulence. That night, I slept more soundly than I had in months, despite the pain of the day's events. A great weight had been lifted. Whatever came next would be difficult, but I had taken the first crucial step toward reclaiming my life from fear and exploitation. I was no longer a victim, but a woman taking action to protect herself, and ultimately to help her son find a healthier path forward. The weeks following the confrontation were among the most difficult of my life. Jack made good on his threat to cut contact, not responding to calls or messages. Sarah sent a terse text saying they needed space and asking me not to contact the children for a while. Though it broke my heart, I respected their request, hoping time would eventually heal the rift. Despite the painful separation from my son and grandchildren, other aspects of my life began to improve dramatically. With my pension now secure, I was able to schedule the long overdue roof repairs. I gradually paid down the credit card debt I'd accumulated and even started rebuilding my emergency savings, setting aside small amounts each month. My health improved as the constant stress of Jack's demands lifted. My blood pressure stabilized, my appetite returned, and I began sleeping through the night again. Friends commented on the positive changes in my appearance and demeanor. "You look like yourself again," Dorothy observed one afternoon as we worked in my garden together. I rejoined activities I had abandoned due to financial constraints, returning to my book club and weekly lunches with friends. I even signed up for a watercolor painting class at the senior center, something I'd always wanted to try but never found time for during my working years. Emily called regularly from Seattle, offering emotional support and practical advice. She suggested I connect more directly with my grandchildren, sending them cards and small gifts for special occasions, with notes expressing my love and ongoing interest in their lives. While I never received acknowledgement that these tokens reached Lily and Ryan, I continued sending them faithfully. Through Patricia, I learned that Jack had indeed sought help for his gambling addiction, enrolling in a treatment program after our confrontation. This news gave me hope that something positive might emerge from the painful breakdown of our relationship. I was careful not to directly contact Jack about his treatment, understanding that his recovery needed to be his own journey, free from my involvement. I continued attending the elder abuse support group, finding strength in the shared experiences and wisdom of others who had faced similar situations with family members. Over time, my role shifted from that of a new member seeking help to someone who could offer guidance and encouragement to others just beginning to address their own exploitation. 3 months after our confrontation, on a crisp fall evening, an unexpected knock came at my door. Through the security camera Patricia had helped me install, I saw Jack standing on my porch, alone, shoulders hunched, looking nothing like the entitled, aggressive man who had stormed out of my house that summer day. My heart raced as I opened the door, unsure what to expect. Jack looked up, his eyes red-rimmed and tired, his face thinner than I remembered. "Mom," he said simply. "Can we talk?" I invited him in, maintaining a cautious distance, as we sat in the living room, the scene of our last difficult encounter. Jack perched awkwardly on the edge of the same armchair, hands clasped tightly in front of him. "I've been in treatment," he began without preamble. "For the gambling. 90 days. Just finished the initial program yesterday." "I'm glad to hear that," I said sincerely. "Part of recovery is making amends," he continued, his voice strained. "I've hurt a lot of people, but no one more than you. What I did, taking your money, lying to you, threatening you, it was wrong. All of it. I was desperate and selfish, and there's no excuse, really." I remained silent, allowing him the space to continue his difficult confession. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," he said, looking down at his hands. "I don't deserve that yet. I just wanted you to know I'm working on myself, trying to be better. The gambling started after I lost my job. The real one, not the furniture store I told everyone about. I was too ashamed to tell anyone I'd been fired. One small bet led to another, and then it just took over. This was news to me. You lost your job? When? 2.5 years ago. Right before I started asking you for money. I had a sales position at the insurance company, but they downsized, and I was let go. I told Sarah I was taking a temporary pay cut while transitioning to a new role, but that was a lie. I've been working part-time jobs, jumping from one to another, while pretending everything was fine. The timeline matched perfectly with the beginning of his financial demands. So many pieces suddenly fit together, explaining though not excusing his desperate behavior. The gambling was my way of trying to fix everything quickly, Jack continued. One big win, I thought, and all our problems would be solved. But instead, I just created bigger problems, deeper holes, and then I started using you to fill those holes. He finally looked up, meeting my eyes directly. I'm sorry, Mom. Sorrier than I can ever express. The genuine remorse in his face touched me deeply, but years of deception had taught me caution. Thank you for the apology, Jack. It means a lot to hear. What happens now? I've got a lot of work still to do, he acknowledged. I'm in debt counseling, working out payment plans with creditors. I found a steady job, nothing fancy, just warehouse work, but it's honest pay. Sarah and I are in couples counseling too. She nearly left me when she found out everything I'd been hiding. He hesitated, then added, The kids miss you. They ask about you all the time. The mention of Lily and Ryan brought tears to my eyes. I miss them too. Terribly. Would you be open to seeing them sometime? Not right away if you're not ready, but maybe soon? I'd like that very much, I said, my voice thick with emotion. But Jack, I need to be clear about something. Our relationship can heal. I want it to heal, but the financial boundaries won't change. I can't and won't provide money to you again. Jack nodded quickly. I know that. I don't expect it, don't want it even. That's not why I'm here. I need to learn to stand on my own, fix my own mistakes. He paused, then added, Actually, someday when I'm more stable, I want to pay you back. Not all at once, obviously, but over time, it's important to me. We can discuss that when the time comes, I said, not wanting to focus on money during this tentative reconciliation. For now, I'm just glad you're getting help. Our conversation continued for over an hour, carefully navigating the tender new ground between us. Before leaving, Jack asked if he could bring the children to visit that weekend, a suggestion I eagerly accepted. That first visit was awkward but joyful. Lily and Ryan were initially shy, but they quickly warmed up when I brought out the children's books I'd saved from Jack's childhood. By the end of the afternoon, they were chattering happily about school and friends, as if our separation had never occurred. Over the following months, our family slowly began to heal. Jack continued his recovery program, maintaining sobriety from gambling and working steadily to rebuild his life and our trust. Sarah and I developed a closer relationship than we'd had before, bonding over concerns for Jack's recovery and love for the children. As Christmas approached, I invited the whole family for dinner, including Emily, who flew in from Seattle for the holiday. Watching Jack and Emily talk and laugh together, seeing the children play near the Christmas tree, I felt a profound sense of gratitude for this second chance at family harmony. After dinner, Jack pulled me aside, pressing an envelope into my hand. It's not much, he said quietly, just the first installment. But it's a start. Inside was a check for $500 and a handwritten note promising monthly payments until he had repaid what he had taken. The money itself meant less to me than the commitment it represented, the tangible evidence of Jack's ongoing recovery and responsibility. That evening, as we gathered in the living room for dessert, Jack raised his mug of hot chocolate. "I'd like to make a toast," he said, his voice steady but emotional. "To Mom, who had the courage to set boundaries when I couldn't set them for myself, who loved me enough to stop enabling me, even when it would have been easier to give in. I wouldn't be in recovery today if she hadn't stood firm." The others raised their mugs in agreement, while I blinked back tears of mixed joy and lingering sadness for all we had endured. Later, after everyone had gone home and I was alone in my quiet house, I reflected on the long journey from exploitation to healing. The path had been painful beyond words, requiring more strength than I knew I possessed. There would still be difficult days ahead, trust that would need to be rebuilt, step by careful step. But for the first time in years, I felt hopeful about the future of our family. I had learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for someone is to stop giving them what they ask for and instead offer what they truly need, even when that means saying no. That protecting yourself isn't selfish, but necessary, especially when helping someone has become hurting yourself. That even the deepest wounds between parent and child can begin to heal when both parties commit to honesty and growth. My story isn't unique. Thousands of older adults face financial exploitation from family members each year, often suffering in silence due to shame, fear, or misplaced loyalty. If my experience helps even one person recognize these patterns and find the courage to seek help, then sharing it has been worthwhile. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with someone you love? How did you find the strength to prioritize your own well-being while still maintaining the relationship? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found this story meaningful, please consider liking this video, subscribing to the channel, and sharing it with someone who might benefit from knowing they're not alone in facing these painful family dynamics. Thank you for listening to my story. Remember, it's never too late to reclaim your dignity and peace of mind. Wishing you the courage to protect yourself and the wisdom to offer true help rather than harmful enabling to those you love.